Hi Sarah, good to see you and thanks so much for agreeing to do this interview. I'm really interested to hear from your perspective as someone whose name is on the legal challenge.
Well, thank you for inviting me and thank you for what you're doing to raise funds. I'm really grateful.
You're very welcome. A lot of people haven't heard of Horse Hill, they don't know where it is, they don't know what's going on there. Can you give us like a bit of an overview?
Okay, well Horse Hill is a tiny little place in Surrey. It's about 1 mile north of Gatwick Airport. The nearest town is Hawley, but it's a very rural area. It's just basically some scattered farms and houses and an oil drilling site.
So who was it that gave them permission to drill and how did that all work?
Well, it was the Surrey County Council Planning Committee who decide on minerals applications of this kind. So they went through their usual process of sort of looking at all the impacts and pros and cons of this development, and they decided astonishingly to give it the green light, even though just a couple of months beforehand Surrey County Council had themselves declared a climate emergency that is caused by the use of fossil fuels, and also think it's okay to give permission for something which is going to produce possibly upwards of 10 million tonnes of greenhouse gases over 20 years.
How do you come into this then?
Well, I'm a local resident. I live about 6 miles from Horse Hill and I've been sort of campaigning on it since 2013 really. But when the planning permission was given for the expansion and the 20 years of production, I was utterly shocked and dismayed and couldn't believe that this had been allowed. Not just me and a lot of other people. So we took legal advice and were advised that yes, we can challenge this in the courts through something called a judicial review. And you need a claimant, an individual person who's prepared to put their name to it. It's never been just me on my own. There's a lot of people behind me within the Wheels Action Group and the local residents, lots of people. You know, it happens to be in my name, but it's a community thing.
What might be some of those ramifications from if you're successful?
Currently it's a grey area. In some applications the indirect emissions do get considered, in others not. We say in this case they should be, and if we're successful we will have established that yes, they do have to consider the indirect emissions from a development. Any future development that would have big climate impacts happening as a result but in a different place, they would have to quantify those emissions too, and then they'd have to measure them against the government's net zero target. In the immediate future it's also about Dunsfold in Surrey and the Isle of Wight, where the same company, UCOG, is also looking to extract oil.
I'm obviously trying to help fundraise for this. Can you tell us how that money exactly is going to be spent?
Yeah, the money is for legal costs, so that's court costs, the fees that you have to pay to go to court, and lawyers' time. Got a target of £25,000 to pay for this appeal, and we're well on the way already, thanks to people like yourselves. So yeah, the first round of the judicial review was also paid for by donations, and I'm incredibly grateful to all the people that gave money, raised money, and it's just shown what a popular cause it is.
Thanks so much, Sarah, for doing this interview. Like it's really important, I think, for me and for people in general, especially people who live in Surrey, to understand what's going on and how this all works, because it's something that affects us all, will affect us all very significantly, and it's obviously can be very confusing, the legality of it. So yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview, and thank you so much for leading on the legal challenge.
Well, thank you, and Sam, for what you're doing, for raising money, but for also just spreading the word and like making Horse Hill famous across England and into Spain. I really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.